Why try to get what we already have? What's up, everybody? Dr. V in the building. Welcome to the Top Down Living Podcast. Listen, man, as I've always said, we're going to have an amazing time on tonight. I hope that you are ready and excited. I have a special guest with me tonight. I promised you this on last week that I would not be the only one giving context to this conversation on the subject matter of pornography. And let me tell you, put a couple of phone calls in, threw my little receipt in for a favor, and she showed up in the building, y'all. So it's going to be good. Want to give you time to get in the room, hit the notification tab, man. Let us know where you guys are watching us from. We've been in this amazing topic on the prison of porn, and I can't tell you how awesome the feedback has been from this conversation. And we started this out by letting you know that this is not something that we want to bring shame and condemnation about. I threw myself under the bus and let you know your boy struggled with it. It's a sin issue that all of us have a bend in our flesh. Now, we know some of us have trailed our way into this thing because we put our eyes in the wrong place, put our hands on the wrong things, we're in the wrong environments, and now we've become prisoners of porn. But the body is bent. Everybody's body is bent towards something. And so for some of us, it's going to be a thing of mastery. But for many of us, it's not only going to be a thing of mastery, but it's an area that we're going to have to find deliverance in. And so from that being said, I didn't want to be the only person to give context to this conversation, that there are professionals, there are other voices that need to speak to this. The Bible says we have many members in one body and all members have not the same office, but we being many are one, and every one members one of another. And so I believe that two are better than one. And then you get to hear it from both sides. You get to hear me as a spiritual, as a pastor, but you also get to hear someone who has gone and gotten the training, but is also a Christian. So they have a little up on me because they done went to school and got all that other type of stuff and are able to bring that and filter that through the Spirit and bring some mid-course corrections and some greater clarity to the subject matter. And that is exactly what we are going to get into on tonight. So I'm excited. I want to go ahead and bring her in the building. Listen, I'm excited to say, I'm getting so excited, I'm knocking my mic. I'm excited to say that she is also a member, come on up in the building now, of Right Way Christian Center Church. We are honored to have her as a member. As a matter of fact, since she has been at the church, the moment I found out, I said, oh yeah, I'm about to work you. So a lot of people that need counseling beyond just the pastors and the ministers at the church who help me to do counseling, when we see that they need something greater than just our study, then we're honored that we have people at our church that we can point our members to, that we can trust their spirit and their soul to the counsel and the therapy of certain persons at our church, and she definitely happens to be one of them. We're not only is she a member of the church, but she's a dear friend, and I'm so grateful to have her. Her name is Dr. Raquel. We call her Dr. Rock, but she's known as Dr. Davis, and she got this this LICSW thing behind her name. And let me just bring in the room, Dr. Rock. What's going on? How we doing?
Hey, Dr. V, how are you? Thank you for
I am
having me.
amazing. I just messed that introduction all up. So you're going to have to take
It's
a few
okay.
moments and introduce yourself to the TDL family, and then we'll dive down into this conversation.
Okay, so what you were trying to explain was the LICSW, and all that means is licensed clinical social worker. I've been clinically licensed for 23 years now. And so, in order to get clinically licensed, you got to get the master's degree, then you got to do 3,000 hours of supervision, you got to take a test and kind of get vetted. And so, that's all that LICSW means, that I'm licensed to do what I do, and I've been doing it for a long time.
And that's exactly why I wanted you to be on the show. So we're going to call you Dr. Rock going forward. And I just want to say welcome to the TDL family. And I know y'all out there, man, y'all put some thumbs up and some hands in the comments. We're just honored to have you with us. Here's what I want to do. I want to jump right into this conversation. And you know what? I almost, we were in the green room earlier and you said something. And I say, man, I want to go there so bad. So you know what? I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna go there. Before we came into the show, you said you made the statement that I told you that a lot of the emails and a lot of the responses I've been getting has been from women. So you said, were they married or were they single? And I said, well, the single far outweigh the married, but they are married. And then you made the statement, well, you know, life is life and people are trying to keep their body counts down. And so, you know, I guess they turn to this alternative as a way of doing that. So here's my out of the gate question. We it's almost like we're gonna get round the track one time before we even get started. So
Okay.
so does that work? It's a compound question. Does that work? Me turning to porn, masturbation, these other things as an alternative. Does it work? Is it right? And are there any unintended side effects that
Mhm.
come as a result of that, not only naturally but spiritually?
So it works temporarily. You asked a whole bunch of questions in there. So does it work? It works temporarily. Is it
Mm,
good? No. Are there some unintended consequences? Yes.
mm,
And so the roundabout answer is yes and no. It works
okay.
temporarily, but temporary fixes are a band aid. They do not heal, they do not bring long term solutions, and they are definitely negative consequences. And the
Mm,
literature is really clear about all of that, whether you're talking about individuals or whether you're talking about couples, specifically in marital relationships. The literature is very, very clear that the use of porn in any shape, form, or fashion has negative outcomes in the long run. And we
mm.
don't know what we don't know. Nobody can see the future. And so people put a temporary solution, a quick fix, not realizing what they're inviting in and what the long term effects are, which are typically negative, specifically for married couples.
Wow. You know that I was looking, I got some numbers here, and the numbers are just astounding. 69% of American men, 40% of American women view online porn each day. Our porn sites are 2 billion visits a day.
Mhm.
Well, in a single month, actually, according to a 2023 census. When it comes to the belief of porn, 14% of Americans in one study reported that they believe porn use is wrong, while 51% disagree. So we got half, based on the statistic, believe that porn is good. It's right. Where do you think that these numbers are coming from? What do you think that's the driving force behind what we're seeing when it comes to porn?
So you have to consider where the numbers are coming from. So I'm
Okay.
not sure exactly where your data is coming from because there's lots of data out there.
Hmm.
You can Google and get information about anything, but you know everything we find in the internet is not always true. So I'm
True.
not sure exactly where the data is coming from. But I do know that even within Christian circles, there are lots of people who believe that pornography is okay.
Hmm.
Within marriage, they believe that it's a good alternative to increasing your body count and being promiscuous. So you're doing something to fulfill your flesh and the sexual desires, and it's not increasing number of partners. So people see that as a good thing. But what the literature is very clear about is that the probability of divorce for married couples literally doubles when there is pornography use involved. And the literature is also very clear that pornography use decreases marital satisfaction. There have been, intermediate studies, there have been long range, longitudinal studies. They all are very clear that pornography use is negatively impacting marriages, such that the probability of divorce doubles. And so there's several different factors that come into play, but no matter how you slice it, where you're getting the data from, one thing that is clear is that pornography use is negatively impacting the individual and the couple across the board.
Wow. Okay. So you just touched on something, and you and I, we were at a marriage event where actually we hosted it, and you and I got in some text conversation from one of the questions that was asked during the marriage conference, and it dealt with spouses being able to record themselves and engage, and rewatch and that type of thing. And I kind of felt like we needed to circle back around and give a more fuller answer to what the discussion kind of carried out inside of the conference. But you just said that divorce, the data is clear that divorce doubles when porn is involved. And so then now you think about couples who see this as a way of bringing excitement and bringing fulfillment to the bedroom, but yet the data says that divorce doubles as a result of that. And so what how do we
Yes.
convince these couples that these you don't see the underlining and unintended consequences that are coming from this temporary fulfillment that you've invited into your bedchamber?
hmm So what happens is a lot of couples start out together,
Mm,
and it may be a joint decision. It may be something we're going to do to bring some excitement into the relationship. So they may start out together,
hmm
but they don't end up together, right? Because at some point along the way, inevitably, somebody is going to venture off into solo pornography use. And so, with all good intentions on the front end to do something that both people are going to enjoy, it's going to bring some excitement. At some point, inevitably, somebody ventures off into solo pornography use. And so, when that solo venture occurs and becomes problematic, which it typically does, then you have a break in trust, you have a break in intimacy, you have a break in transparency, you have a break in communication. And so what starts out as something good inevitably turns into something bad. So it's like planting a seed. That seed is definitely going to grow.
hmm
You don't know exactly how it's going to grow.
hmm
And what I liken it to, I always give people the analogy, about eating and health. I make the analogy that, we start out, we eat what we want to eat, we do what we want to do, we don't want to exercise, we eating all this unhealthy stuff, and we feel really, really good in the moment.
hmm
20, 30, 40, you can eat whatever you want to eat, you're going to be fine. 50 hits, okay? The blood pressure goes up, the diabetes steps in, the joints get a little bit creaky. We don't know what we don't know. And when you invite pornography in on the front end, feel good, taste good, look good, just like the food.
hmm
But we don't know what's 10 years down the road.
hmm
And just like our health is negatively impacted 10, 15, 20 years down the road, the same is the case with marital relationships. And even if you're not married, you can be single, right? But you have the mindset of pornography use. And as a single person, you take that mindset of pornography use into your relationship. We call it sexual scripts, right? And so, like, you talk a lot about your grandfather and how he gave you a template of manhood. He gave you a
hmm
template of responsibility. What you saw in him, you wanted to replicate in the type of man that you were. Okay. And we use that analogy of what we put in is what you get out. But we don't want to use that when it becomes pornography and things that are pleasing to our flesh. It is
Mm,
the exact same. So when you watch pornography as a married person or as a single person, you are creating what is called a sexual script. You are learning things, you are seeing things. Those things become your norms and your expectations. Well, if we do it like this, we're going to get this outcome. If you say these words, you're going to have this response. And so we don't realize that what we're putting in is what we get out. We don't realize that we're creating sexual scripts. We're giving our brain and our bodies templates that we unintentionally are then looking for later in life. So it doesn't matter if you're single and you're trying to, self-satisfy now temporarily because you're
hmm
not married. You are still creating a sexual script
mm,
of what sex is supposed to look like,
hmm
what sex is supposed to sound like, all those types of things. So
hmm
even if you're single, when you get into a relationship later, you have that script in your mind of what you think sex is supposed to be. And if you're married, you're opening up Pandora's box for comparison, even though you say
hmm
that you're not. You're setting up a thing for comparison. And men specifically, you guys are more visual. So when
hmm
men watch porn, it is a ongoing movie reel
Wow.
in your mind because those images are there. It's like we can't unsee it.
hmm
Women, for some reason, our brains process differently. It's
hmm
kind of like we can unsee it. We don't hold on to those images as long as men do. But men are very visual. And when you guys look at things, you have that image in your head. And so it's an ongoing movie reel that's played out over and over again.
mm,
And what women oftentimes say is that over time, they start to wonder, am I just a warm body? Is he really thinking about me? Is it the image of me in his
Mm,
mind right now? Or is
mm-hmm,
it the image of somebody else? Because
mm-hmm,
men hold on to those images.
mm-hmm.
So it may take a year, it might take 2 years, it might take 10 years, but somewhere down the line, that seed has been planted, it grows. That script has been developed.
Mm-hmm.
You revert back to that. And so all of those issues of insecurity, I mean, you can start out really insecure in your relationship, right? We're real secure. We don't have any issues. We go do this together. It's not going to be any issues. Somewhere down the road,
Mm.
the literature shows that it changes.
Wow.
And so what is happening is that people don't understand that they are planting a seed. They don't know what they don't know, but the literature does clearly show that down the road, what starts out good does not end that way.
Whoa. That sexual scripts is deep.
It
Because when
is.
I yeah, that is profound. Like I remember when I got with my wife. When I got with my wife, that didn't sound right. When me and my wife got married,
Uh-huh.
I I brought that into my marriage and I recognized it. Holy Spirit brought that to my attention. And I remember praying and asking God, like, I need her for the one woman she is and not for these three women that I want her to be. I want her this from this woman, that from that woman. So I understand those the sexual scripts. And the Lord said that I had to go back and I had to divorce from
Mhm.
my soul and my body those actions that took place with those different women so that I can receive my wife for the one woman that she was. And I did it and thank God it worked because I knew that that could have been very destructive, not only for my marriage, but destructive for my wife because, okay, what am I? I'm not good enough. Am I not enough for you? And why do you need all of that? And so I, I love when you said about to the man and then to the woman, she starts to feel like she's insecure. It seems like to me you are it was kind of a warning right then to females that you got to be real careful that you don't because it's introduced to you, you don't lean into it because for us it's something that can be more perpetual, whereas to you somewhere down the line it puts a mirror up and then almost makes you say, well, am I even good enough for this anymore, and is he really wanting me or is he really wanting the activity because of how man was how man was engineered to be visual.
You are 100% correct. So, just a little backstory. I gave a part of my testimony that you've referenced before. So, another piece of that testimony is that I was also the wife in a relationship 20 years ago, with a man in ministry who was struggling a whole lot with pornography use. And
Okay.
so my interest in this actually started at home, right?
Mm,
I'm trying to figure out what is this vice of pornography use. And then I actually did my dissertation on pornography use
yes.
and the mental health effects on women and marital satisfaction.
Mm,
So, what started in the home for me 20 years ago in my first marriage, because of all I was dealing with in that situation, I said, look, I have done a 16-year case study on pornography use and the mental health impacts on
uh-huh.
women, right? I was that marriage and me, that was my case study. So then I said, let me put this into some academic research. And I
Mm,
did my dissertation very specifically on this topic. And in researching it, for my dissertation, what I saw over and over again, number one, is that I was not alone.
mm,
Okay. And so that was affirming to me to know that I was not alone in
mm-hmm.
this situation. And in the literature, pornography use is actually called the elephant in the pew for Christians, right? So, like
Wow.
we talk about the elephant in the middle of the table, the white elephant over here, the white elephant over there, that thing you do not want to talk about. But there's actually literature that refers to pornography use as the elephant in the pew because it is so pervasive in the church. Okay, so I started doing my research on this topic again from a personal interest. And then when I went to get my doctorate, I said, I'm going to actually study this out because I was trying to process and deal with my own issues at the time and trying to learn and understand myself more because throughout the course of that relationship, I went from a person who was very secure. I had never been insecure, right? And I went from a person who was very secure to a person that had a lot of self-doubt. And a lot of it was related to pornography use by my husband,
Mm-hmm.
and the depression, the anxiety, the insecurity, the questioning that then came, and the
Mm-hmm.
comparisons that came.
Mm-hmm.
So I lived this and was able to see it firsthand. And then I was able to research it and see it. And then I still see it in my practice, with couples that are coming in very specifically talking about this issue. And so that's how I know that I know that I know
Mm-hmm.
that it's real, and that these outcomes are very, very real long term. And that's what people don't see.
Talk a little bit to us, the elephant in the church. I want to talk about
Mhm,
that a little bit,
mhm,
because you're absolutely right. This is a I remember one time I was, back when I was a young preacher, I was a debater, and I felt like I needed to fight for the word. I need to fight for God, only
mhm,
to realize that God don't need that from me. Just teach the word. But
mhm,
anyway, these guys tried to undermine me to get me on this show because he's the prosperity preacher, but the guy, he thought he was putting me on hold. But then I heard him talking about, we got him on the line, we about to get him. And so I hung up the phone. I texted him back later, and then they got in the thread online because it was like an online type of talk show, and they start cutting me down. And so let me go into threads. You want to do that? And so I say,
mhm,
listen, before we start talking about pastors, we got to throw ourselves under the bus. If we gonna gossip, let's do it the right way, and let's throw ourselves
mhm,
under the bus. Then you can throw anybody else under the bus, but you can't throw people under the bus. And we all got issues. I say, so I'll go first. I was a young pastor. I struggle with porn, and
mhm,
God is delivered. Yeah, yeah. I say, okay, next, and the entire thread just went silent. Well, the same guy that was calling me a false prophet and I'm taking people money personally inbox me and say, man, thank you so much for sharing that. I'm getting a divorce because of porn right now. Now, he's on social media cutting pastors down, called me a false prophet, prosperity preacher, but yet he's going through a divorce right now from
mhm,
pornography. I thought that was like, how, you have no space to even gossip about nobody. But it was proof that this thing is big in the church. That we have people, you call it the elephant in the church, but we have people who are imprisoned to porn in the
mhm.
church right now. Like, what would you
Absolutely.
say? What would you say, having experienced it and been through it, got the
Mhm,
master's, the doctorate degree? What would you speak to that? Because we need help. Let this. I'm gonna keep myself on the boat with everybody. We need help
mhm,
in this area, and we got to stop treating it like it's taboo and pushing these people to the side, or just shoving it under the table when in fact it could be the very man that's teaching the people that even can be struggling himself, him or herself.
mhm. So the issue in the church is shame. And
Okay.
so it is the sexual shame that prevents people from coming forth. And so, just like,
Wow.
I shared it in my text, I applaud the couples that were bold enough to ask the questions,
Mm-hmm.
because it is typically shame that keeps people from seeking help. So
Wow.
people will know internally that this is an issue, this is a struggle, but sexual sins, for whatever reason, always outshine everything else. And so people want to talk about this sin over here, talk about that sin over here. They'll acknowledge this, acknowledge that, but people don't like to talk about sexual sins.
Yeah.
And so the issue in the church is shame.
Mm.
People do not want to confess the sexual sins. They will confess everything else. And I don't know the backstory for why sexual sins are, get so much heavier weight than
Right.
other sins. But
Right.
sexual sins very specifically, and the associated shame is what keeps people from talking about it. So there are lots of people suffering in silence,
Mm.
specifically related to sexual sin. They will stand up and say, I have a drug issue, or, I have a lying issue, or they'll even say, I have an adultery issue, but
Mm-hmm.
they will not say, I have a pornography issue.
Wow.
They would rather just say, I'm an adulterer. It can't
Wow.
be, I'm addicted to pornography and I'm an
Mm-hmm.
adulterer. I don't know what that line is right there. But
Mm-hmm.
very specifically, there is tons of research about sexual shame related to pornography use. And that is what the barrier is that keeps people from coming forth. And if you don't acknowledge it,
Right.
you can't heal what you don't acknowledge.
That's
So
true.
if you can't come to the altar and repent for it, if you can't come and say, I need help very specifically for this issue, you are putting up the barrier there that is preventing you from getting healed
Hmm.
specifically from that. And
Hmm.
people will come to the altar and acknowledge everything else, but not specifically
Yeah.
pornography use.
Okay. Okay. So here's the question. Keeping myself in the
Mhm,
boat.
mhm.
Is a part of that shame our fault? And if so, how do we remove that barrier? And when I say our fault, I'm talking about, is it the pastor's fault? Maybe from the way that we've set up the church, our church, just kind of think through that. And if so, what do we need to do in order to help break down that barrier, that wall, or whatever it is that may have been set up as a result of, or is that just one of those unintended taboo things that just kind of been
Mm,
pushed out the way?
I'm not sure. I think the concept of masturbation for a lot of people is embarrassing in and
Mm,
of itself.
yeah,
People don't want to always acknowledge that they are self-pleasuring, especially men. Why I got to do all that? I can go get this or go get
right,
that. Men want
right,
to, have that persona that they don't have to do that
right.
very specifically because they want the persona of I can have any woman and I can go get a woman to fulfill this need. And so
Got it.
a lot of it comes from embarrassment in that area. um, and I don't know where the overarching issue of the sexual shame comes from. I just know that within the church, you know, from the pulpit to the pew, there is a lot of shame, and that's why it's not talked about.
Got it. Got it. As you were talking, God Almighty, man. All right, I'm gonna talk about it a little bit. So when it came to me, I
Mhm.
didn't I didn't watch all porn. I wasn't crazy about all the
Mhm.
wow, that crazy. I wouldn't the porn that I searched for. I feel shame already.
Mhm.
The porn that I looked for was the porn where the man did the less work. Because I could talk about me. I always felt like I felt like I wanted to watch somewhere where I felt like I was the prize and I could sit back and relax versus me seeing the bedroom like a workroom, like I'm going here to go to work, like it's always the man got to be big enough, the man got to turn the woman out, and for once I felt like, well, I'm gonna watch something that, and I know it's artificial stimulation, but it felt good knowing that this person came in here to please me, and all I got to do is sit back and enjoy it. What? So I don't think people are watching porn all for the same reasons. What have your studies kind of
Uh-huh. Right.
discovered or found out about that?
So people definitely are not watching porn for the same reasons.
Hmm.
Um, And that speaks to oftentimes where some of the insecurity for the other partner comes into play, whether it's male or female, because
Okay.
people do seek out specific types of porn,
Hmm.
right? So, for example, I had a young lady, um, and she was a specific body type, and her husband always sought out porn with women of this body type.
Mm.
Okay. And so, no matter how often he told her she was beautiful, no matter how often he told her he
Right.
loved her, no matter how often he told her that she was enough, her response was, well, why you always got to watch this type of videos?
Hmm.
Because that speaks to what your internal processes are and what
Hmm.
your thought processes are. So people do watch porn for very specific reasons and seek out certain types of porn. But that then goes into the transparency and the communication between the couple, right? Because if you are looking for something specific, have you shared with your partner that that's the type of engagement that you're looking for? Have you given your partner the opportunity to be what it
That's good.
is that you're looking for
That's good.
in the pornography? And
Hmm.
oftentimes people are not. And so that's where that breakdown in communication comes in.
Hmm.
That's where the insecurity comes in because people will, just like, my one client, it was like, well, you telling me this, but your behavior is that your eyes always go to
Right.
this. So that lets me know that this is a preference for you, a
Mm-mm.
preference that I am not. So it could be a look, It could be, the action and the
Mm-hmm.
energy level, the power struggle, the power differential. There are specific things that people look for in pornography, but
Mm-hmm.
that takes somebody doing the self-reflective work. So, right, you had to think about that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
What type of porn am I looking for?
Right.
What is it about this type of porn that attracts me? And what does that say on a deeper level in terms of what my needs might be? So, what
Right.
happens is people don't do the deep self reflective work. They look at things on a very surface,
Mm-hmm.
superficial level and don't dig deep enough to
Mm-hmm.
understand the why.
Mm.
What is the underlying why? There's always an underlying why. We want to, be easy about it and say just because. Just because is not the answer to anything. There's always an underlying why. And
Mm-hmm.
if pornography use is an issue for you, you have to ask yourself, what is the underlying why?
That's good. Come on, I want you to, because that therapist started to come on. We need some people because I don't think that is so. You just really, I love that pivot. I don't think that it's a matter of everyone needing hands laid on them and come out in the name of Jesus.
Mhm,
Talk to us a little bit more about some processes that we can do to move shame, really open ourselves up to some very transparent dialogue with our partners, more importantly, with ourselves, with God
mhm,
concerning this area as we're trying to delve into and find out and discover this why. Why are my eyes going here? Why are my habits?
mhm,
Why am I attracted to this like I am? What's missing in me, right? Or
mhm.
missing in my marriage that's not causing me to have to go to this to make up for that why.
So, I talk to people very specifically about first, well, there's a type of therapy specifically called acceptance and commitment therapy. And to put a little spin on that, for religious and Christian people, specifically, you have to accept what it is for what it is first. Like I
Okay.
initially said, you can't heal what you don't acknowledge, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you cannot put the words out of your mouth to say, I have a problem with pornography use and start there, you are then impeding all the steps that follow that. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to at first acknowledge and accept this is my issue.
Mm-hmm.
Just accept it for what it is, right? Then you have to be committed to the change process, whatever that is. So that's where the hard work comes in because once you commit to change, you have to be willing to go through the steps, whatever they are. And those steps look different for different people.
Mm-hmm.
And then for us as Christians, we have to do the repentance work. So we have to accept, we have to commit to change, we have to obviously ask God for forgiveness and we have to repent.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have to be very intentional and disciplined. We have to focus on retraining our mind and our flesh. There
Mm.
is no magic solution, right? There is no just one step scenario. I'm gonna do this and I'm going to be healed.
Right.
It takes all of those. So
Mm-hmm.
first you have to accept that it's an issue.
Mm-hmm.
When people go to Alcoholics Anonymous and those types of things, they have to stand up and say, my name is Raquel and I am an alcoholic. Okay,
Right.
so it starts with first, why are you laughing at me? You
Because
first.
I put my hand up, I said I'm not an alcoholic, but I'm a coffeeholic. So just
Okay, so you have to stand up and acknowledge this is my issue.
mm-hmm.
Right. So it first comes with acceptance. Then you have to commit to whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
whatever the process is going to look like for you. And
Mm-hmm.
it's different for each person. It's not going to be the same, but you have
Wow.
to commit to the change process. We
Okay.
can discipline ourselves to lose weight. We can discipline ourselves to save if we want a
Mm-hmm.
special purchase. But can you discipline and retrain your mind and your flesh?
Wow.
Whether single or
Yeah.
married,
Yeah.
are you disciplined enough to do the work to retrain your mind and your flesh?
Wow.
And that's where the breakdown typically happens. People do not have the discipline to do the work to
Mm.
overcome it.
Mm. Okay. This is my last question. I want to talk. Well, we just talked to the person, and I think that they'll be able to dissimulate what that looks like to them. You talked about retraining the mind and the flesh. We got a
Mm-hmm.
married couple that they've trained their sexual script is that
Mm-hmm.
if we don't bring this into the bedroom, there is no excitement in our bedroom. And to that single person who's trying to keep the body count down, they're
Mm-hmm.
hooked on this. This is, I mean, I go to this like I drink water.
Mm-hmm.
What would you suggest? Because of course we do want that husband and wife to still come together. But
Mm-hmm.
again, the script is if this doesn't happen, the arousal, the excitement, the desire for each other is not there. So what do we do when we're trying to move this out and yet keep desire and attractiveness there, but we got to start moving this out the way in order to do it. And to that single person that's involved in it, what are some steps that they can take? I know you said acknowledge, accept, commit, but
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Rock, you got to help me because if we don't watch this, it ain't going down.
Well, I think that's very interesting though, because in the same vein that people say they want intimacy and they want closeness and they want to connect to their partner, how much are you really connecting if you have to bring in something else to facilitate that process,
Mm,
right? So you think you're creating intimacy, you think you're creating connection, but you're doing the exact opposite
wow.
because you have to bring in something extra
Mm-hmm.
to the process. So to
Mm-hmm.
me, I mean, that just does not make sense.
Mm-hmm.
That math does not math. If
Mm-hmm.
you are wanting true intimacy and true connection with your partner, how are you getting that? And you
Wow.
have to bring in a third party. So for me, it always starts with the basic questions. I
Mm-hmm.
always ask couples. I mean, and the thing is, when I counsel, premarital, after marital, having issues, the question of is there pornography use in a relationship, I always ask that. In premarital counseling, people talk about money, they talk
Mm-hmm.
about communication, they talk about trust. I also ask, who uses pornography? Just
Mm.
straight question. Just look, and you have to ask it quick and short, so they don't have time to think about it. So which one of y'all or both are using pornography? And it's like they
Right.
get caught off guard real quick. But you have to start at ground zero, right? So you talk about you and Lady and what's the name of the naked and unashamed,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you always talk about that in terms of how you guys do the premarital counseling. So if you are naked and unashamed and you're starting at ground zero,
That's
there's
good.
nothing else there. You have to start naked and unashamed, just the two of you, right? And
Mm.
it is a matter of, for a lot of couples, it's just like going cold turkey. Let me rediscover you
Mm-hmm.
without the pornography.
Mm-hmm.
Let me rediscover you.
That's good.
And so that starts with conversation. Tell me what you like. Tell me what you don't like,
Mm-hmm.
and practice makes perfect. I heard somebody talking about watching pornography to figure out if you can do it better and all that time. Practice makes perfect. What you got to watch it for? Just do it. Right. And you, you just learn, learn and take notes as you go, and
That's
then
right.
do it some more
Do it
and
more.
learn and take notes as you go. So I think the answer to that question, very simply, even though it's easier said than done, is that if you're committed to it, you have to take it out.
That's good.
You have to just stop
Mm-hmm.
and commit to starting over. If you started with pornography use and you are a married couple, you need to repent of that. You need to apologize one to the other and say, and make it fun.
Mm-hmm.
Take it out and make it fun to start over. If your partner has to watch pornography to get aroused, then that person is not into you. That person is
Ooh.
not being intimate with you. That person is being aroused by the pornography, not by
Not
you.
by you.
And both partners should be a little bit offended in that situation right
Mm-hmm.
there. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? You want your partner to be fully aroused by you. But that takes the hard conversations. Lots of couples get married and they do not talk about sex, they
Right.
just do
Mm-hmm.
sex. If
Mm-hmm.
we sit back and talk about it, like really have the hard conversations about it, and you learn more about your partner and you're open and transparent about what you really, really like, what you really, really don't like,
Mm-hmm.
that's what creates the connection. And it's more meaningful when you finally do get together. And so, my advice for
Wow.
couples would just be easier said than done, but don't do it.
Don't do it.
Agree to take it out and start over fresh. Make learning one another what you have to do. Make that learning process and
Mm-hmm.
how you engage with one another, just make it fun. Play
Wow.
some games with it.
Yeah.
you know,
I like that. I like that.
um,
And
and
we're
then
not saying that you can't have fun in the bedroom. Porn is just not the
absolutely
way we
not.
do that.
Pornography is not the way that you should do it. You are inviting something in. You cannot see the long term effects. You don't know what you are inviting in.
Wow.
But down the road, that
Hmm.
seed you planted is very likely to grow into something that you are completely oblivious to when
Wow.
you enter in. So, why open that door?
Hmm.
If you have already opened Pandora's box, join together and
And
close
close it.
it. Right? Put both of y'all strength on it.
Yeah.
Join together
Yeah.
and close if you have already opened that door. But why expose yourself? Why expose your relationship?
Hmm.
Why open that door?
Hmm. Hmm.
Inviting something in when you have no idea what it's going to grow into.
Wow. So the last thing I want from you is that ask you is that it is possible then for a person or couples, married couples, to rewrite their sexual script.
Absolutely.
Good. Good. Because
Right. So
go
the
ahead.
same research that showed that couples who engage in pornography use, the probability of divorce is doubled. That same research in a longitudinal study looked at couples who were using pornography use and then stopped using pornography use, and if there was an inverted relationship, meaning that when we are using pornography, the probability of divorce goes up, and then when you stop using pornography, does marital satisfaction increase or decrease? And the results show that when pornography use is discontinued over time, marital satisfaction will increase. And so, I mean, I'm a research person. Everybody is not, but I believe the research, the numbers that are associated with it. You look at interviews with people and talk to people about their lived experiences. It's very, very consistent. Marital satisfaction, if that's what you want long term, is increased when you take out the pornography use. It's
That's
it's
why I
just
love you,
you
Dr.
can't
Rock.
deny it.
Yeah, you're so thorough. You are definitely in your anointed vein from our first conversation. You just I said to myself, this lady has it, man. And just you and
Thank
Katie,
you.
you guys are so special to me. And I thank you so much for coming on this episode. I think the audience, my TDL family, I think they are pleased. And we got a lot of information. Acknowledge, accept it, commit to change. Those of us, and you know what? I don't think that forgiveness is just a Christian thing. I think that it's important for a person to forgive themselves for putting themselves in an environment or putting themselves in something that eventually caused them to be imprisoned by it. And so, learning to forgive yourself for even entertaining and enacting with certain things, I think is important as well. But we that are in the Christian faith, we know that we have to repent, ask for forgiveness. And then you said we have to be intentional and disciplined about taking those steps. And then we have to retrain our mind and retrain our flesh. And I just think that that is
Absolutely.
some very good information that we can close on this episode that is really going to help people to unprison themselves from the prison of porn. You have been so helpful to us on today, and I'm so grateful to have you with us. And hopefully, when I get into another one of these conversations, I can pull my little favor card again and get you to come on and share with us. Come on, TDL family. Y'all give it up for Dr.
Thank
Rock, man.
you.
It has been amazing. Thank you so much, daughter. I appreciate you. And hold your seat right there. Hey, guys, man, I hope that you enjoyed. Did we not get a whole bunch of information? Was she not awesome, man? I'm telling you guys, we got one more week on this. So I want you to tune in next week as we're going to close out this episode on the prison of porn. And as always, there's my information. Come on, connect with us. Sow your seed if you feel led of the Lord. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, VR Ministries. I got my new book out there. You guys can go and pick up. I hope you enjoyed the podcast today. I hope you enjoyed our special guest, Dr. Rock. We thank her for being on the show on today. And as always, remember that we live life top down and always command your day. Until next time, salute.